At a most basic level, what drives regional growth is innovation. And so innovation can be the creation of new goods, the creation of new services, improvements in the way that we provide existing goods and services, using what local areas are indigenously good at and finding ways of exporting that around the world. And so what a lot of research that I've worked on has found is that highly skilled workforces in regions that have rules of the game that encourage innovation are places that over the long term are going to outperform other regions. So if you wanted to think about how can we make Youngstown an area where 25 years from now it's significantly better than it is today, we want to do that through innovation, we want to do that through workforce development, and we want to do that by setting the rules of the game in such a way that it encourages people to innovate. I think Youngstown was quite an innovative place for a long period of time, but the innovation was clustered around one particular industry, which was steel. Right? I think Youngstown has probably struggled to find a new identity in that post-steel era, which is we've seen a lot of out-migration from the region. We need to find ways of stopping that and making Youngstown more of an attractive place for people to locate. The old economic development model was try to attract a large company to locate in your town. I think the new economic development model is how do we get talented people to locate in your town? Lower tax burdens, lower regulations, in areas that have amenities that people value. And I would say one of those amenities that people value that works very favorably in Youngstown is affordable housing. I think secondly, we want to focus on education all the way from elementary up to higher ed. Highly skilled workers are more innovative. They're also more resilient to a change. Educated workers can pivot more easily into different industries. And the last piece I would say is do the basic things right. Find amenities that people like. Make the city a livable place in the sense of make it easy to get building permits, to deal with government, and make it a lot easier for small businesses to grow, and I think you'll see things foster. And we know that over the last 25 years, the cities that have really taken off are the ones that did those. So human capital first means attract and retain your talent and develop your workforce. Productive entrepreneurship means set up the rules of the game to incentivize people to produce goods and services for the benefit of society. Reduce frictions for small firms means, again, set up the rules of the game to remove unnecessary red tape and regulation that allows ideas and innovation to really flourish. Quality of place means have the amenities and work to develop the amenities for your region that will help attract and retain people. So those amenities could be affordable housing, could be recreation, could be any number of things, but it's what are those non-work elements of life that people value. Manufacturing employment as a share of US employment was about a third in 1950. And now it's about 8.5% today. Even if you take Mahoning Valley, where there's a lot more manufacturing concentration than we see nationally, about 14% of our jobs are in manufacturing. But that trend has been sharply declining since the 1950s. So it's unlikely that you're going to see a significant rebound in manufacturing simply because of automation, competition. You know, the idea that we don't manufacture things in the US is actually a myth. We manufacture a lot of goods in the US, we just do it with fewer and fewer workers. And so what happens is automation creeps in. You can still produce the same goods and services that you used to be able to produce, sometimes more, but you can do it with fewer and fewer people. So to me, that's not an industry that you want to bet your future on. The long-term trend in manufacturing is that we're producing more output with fewer workers, which is not necessarily the recipe that we want to use to try to promote growth in the region in the future. If you look at where you see most developed economies moving, it's service-based jobs. So for example, healthcare and education are good examples where just imagine you go to a doctor, you probably see a primary care nurse before you see a physician. It's not possible to have the primary care nurse interact with 4,000 people at the same time. So because it's very personal, it's very labor intensive. It requires a lot of people. And those are the areas where we've seen the greatest growth in the economy. When we look at things that are easy to automate, which are generally the production of goods, right, those are the areas where we've seen less and less and less employment over time because people figure out alternative ways of producing things that just require fewer people. So I think we rely too much on those development incentives of saying, hey, we're going to transform Youngstown because we're going to go out, we're going to get the next Amazon to locate here. So Foxconn is kind of a famous example where the state of Wisconsin offered up to $10 billion to Foxconn to develop a new production facility promising, I believe at the time it was 13,000 jobs, if I'm not mistaken. Foxconn very significantly underinvested in the state, very significantly underinvested in the number of jobs. I think the number of jobs turned out to be less than 1,000. It turns out a situation where the state offered a very, very large financial incentive that just didn't deliver. So Amazon HQ2 is also another really high profile economic development case where Amazon was moving a second headquarters, that's why it's called HQ2. And there were over 230 different cities and states that tried to bid against one another to get Amazon to locate there. So from Amazon's perspective, they're playing these cities and states off of each other, trying to get the best possible deal. And often what happens is the locations that quote unquote win, the number of jobs that get created are much, much fewer than what is actually promised. Economic development incentives have been really widely used for states for a long time to try to promote job growth. States and local governments now spend more than $100 billion a year to try to promote job growth. The problem is the evidence is pretty scant that these things have measurable effects on employment, tax revenues, or even reducing unemployment. To me, the biggest issues for the region going forward is, how do you retain the talent that we have? How do we attract people back? And then how do we continue to further develop education and workforce training so that the people that are here can drive the community forward? One of the things that I think is really important that people don't pay attention to is where Youngstown will be 25 years from now is largely going to be determined by the people who are here today. The reason why I'm optimistic is that I believe in people. I think people are the greatest resource that we have. People are innovative, people are creative. It's hard to predict what they're going to come up with, and that's why it's hard to predict the future. But the idea is that I'm optimistic that people are going to be creative in the future, just as they've been creative in the past, and that's going to help drive things forward just as it always has been.